Hi there, thanks for joining me on this episode of Tropical Weather Impact. It is September the 10th, it's Wednesday, and September the 10th, it is the peak of hurricane season here in the Atlantic Basin. We're reporting here in New Orleans, I'm meteorologist Payton Malone, and more importantly, we are celebrating on this September the 10th because of this right here, no development expected. Extremely rare to not be tracking not only not a named storm, but even the potential for development on this peak of the Atlantic season here. And it's not very often that we are talking not about much on this day. To put it in perspective, we've been going back and looking at some data here. The Atlantic Basin has only ever had, well, nothing on September 10th 8 times, and this will be the 9th year, going back to 1950. Also, since the last time Fernand formed or dissipated on August 28th, we've gone from the 29th of August until now. If we make it till the 16th of September, this will have only ever happened once of a quiet period during these time frames. So all these dates and numbers just to say extremely rare to not see development across the Atlantic Basin on this day. Now, I'm not sure this is going to last much longer. I do think the Hurricane Center will start to track a few areas here in the coming days and in the coming weeks. So what's going on? Well, we've got the water temperatures. The water temperatures are actually running well above normal and almost at record level for this time of year in the Gulf. We've got mid-80s along the northern Gulf, a lot of upper 80s though in the central and southern Gulf. You can see down in the Caribbean it's very warm. Off the coast of Florida it's very warm, and so we've got the fuel for tropical systems. The Atlantic Basin is also running slightly above average with water temperatures. So what's going on here? Well, I think the biggest culprit on why things have been so quiet since Aaron and since Fernand, dry air and stable conditions over the Atlantic, meaning the atmosphere is stable right now, and thunderstorms do not form in a stable atmosphere. Therefore, your tropical waves are getting squashed and they're not developing into anything. This is great news, obviously, but as a meteorologist, we're trying to figure out what's going on with the atmosphere. Now, in the Gulf region, we've had a lot of wind shear over the past couple of weeks. Especially in the northern Gulf, so nothing has been able to form thanks to these strong westerly winds in the upper atmosphere. This is thanks to that persistent trough that's caused these cold fronts to slide down. That's your source of wind shear in the Gulf. What's interesting is the Caribbean has had extremely low wind shear, and whenever we have low wind shear in the peak of season, it is extremely uncommon to not have a significant storm. Usually, low wind shear in the Caribbean this time of year is a precursor for a lot of activity out in the tropics. And so there's some other problems going on, and I think the stable Atlantic is one of the biggest culprits here. Also, over the parts of West Africa, we've had more sinking air. The atmosphere has not been tremendously conducive for these big tropical waves, and so that's probably led to some lack of activity as well. So those three things together is why the Atlantic Basin has essentially been shut down during what is traditionally the busiest part of the season. Now, going back, I mentioned that this has only ever happened one other time, where we've had about a 2-week stretch through the middle and the early parts of September of no storms. That's only ever happened one other season. When was that? 1992. Why is that season familiar with most people? Because of one storm, Hurricane Andrew, that Cat 5 in Florida, and it was also a substantial major hurricane in Louisiana. So this goes to show you that just because you have these odd and weird seasons that are a bit more inactive, you can still see some major impacts. And this goes for any season, busy or not busy. It only takes that one storm. And so it'll be interesting to see, does this hurricane season ever wake up? Now, history tells us that it's extremely rare with the conditions we have right now to not see at least some additional activity. Now, at this point, where we stand, we've checked off 6 names. I think it's going to be rather difficult to have an above average season. I mean, going through your busiest part of the season without much happening, you really have to have some wild things happening as you head into October. Now, that could happen. I'm not saying it couldn't, but the chances of having an above average season, the further and further you go, they start to drop off. So here's what we're going to be watching when the tropics actually could wake up. The next 1 to 2 weeks, especially the rest of this week, there's probably not much happening, but next week and then the last week of September, we're probably seeing things try to wake up. The first thing we watch in the next 2 weeks or so is this general zone. We start to watch that classic Central American gyre. or what becomes a broad area of disturbed weather over Central America. It can sometimes spit out tropical systems. Fairly common as we do get closer and closer to October. A couple storms that have spun up from that in October: Hurricane Michael, Hurricane Nate. These are storms that have formed in the past decade in this region, have happened in October, and those have impacted the northern Gulf. So that'll be something we watch long term, but it's no immediate threat to absolutely anybody. There's not even anything down there right now. Now, this is a tropical wave that will probably be highlighted by the National Hurricane Center in the coming days. And so our clear map there of no tropical development, I don't see that lasting much longer. I think in the next day or two, they're going to be highlighting this feature as it rolls off the continent of Africa. And the general thinking is right in this zone, it will have a chance to organize in the next week to maybe week and a half. And so this is also not going to be an immediate threat to anybody anytime soon. So that's the tropical wave right now. Now, we are seeing some model support for this to try to organize over the next week or so. Let's talk about the timing of this, because this is probably going to be the only thing we're really talking about for the rest of this week. Next week, I think we'll start to focus more on Central America and maybe the southern parts of the Gulf. But for the rest of this week and heading into this weekend, watch what happens here. Just a little bit of disturbed weather. The Atlantic is still fairly hostile, but notice, there you go, rolling off the continent of Africa here by Friday morning. That's the tropical wave. Models, the European model is a bit more aggressive, surprisingly. The GFS model is usually the one that wants to spin these things up so quickly, but you can see there, they both have the inklings of that tropical wave and maybe something trying to organize slowly. Here we go into Sunday. The European model says, okay, I may do something with this. The GFS is still struggling, but what you don't see here is the GFS still has the tropical wave in the same vicinity as what the European model is showing. There we are Sunday afternoon. Let's fast forward into next week. Next Monday and Tuesday, what do you notice? The GFS is starting to show signs of it organizing. The European model is still very much on the idea that there's something trying to form down here. Here we are about 6 days from now, and then fast forward into next Wednesday and Thursday, or at least next Wednesday. They both show, the GFS and American model and the European model both show something from that tropical wave in about a week's time. Now, hopefully this thing, just like all the other ones, gains latitude and goes out to sea. We don't really know just yet. We could sit here and speculate this or that, but that's probably going to be the next player in the game, at least in the next 5 to 7 days, on what the National Hurricane Center is monitoring. Our ensemble models, the models that you take these two models and then you run it dozens and dozens of times, trying to tweak different things with different scenarios, they are starting to sniff out this as well. So it's not just our deterministic models here showing this trying to organize. We are seeing something in our ensemble models, which is why I think this gives credence to this being the next spot the National Hurricane Center will monitor. So that's what's going to be going on for the rest of this week and into early next week. Again, closer to home, the GFS model is a bit more aggressive. Shocker, of trying to spin something up by the middle or end of next week in the Caribbean or the Southern Gulf. Not completely sold on that, I'll be honest. The GFS is notorious for spinning up thunderstorms into hurricanes, and it just never happens. And so let's just sit back and wait on this one. The GFS has been persistent with that. That doesn't always mean it's going to happen, especially with the GFS and its aggressiveness with spinning up tropical systems. So that's where we stand on this peak of hurricane season, September the 10th. A rare one where we're not tracking any named storm. It doesn't happen very frequently. Again, it's only ever happened 9 times since 1950. So we are celebrating that as we go through today. But it is a reminder that hurricane season is far from over. We still have the rest of September. We still have the rest of October. And when you look at our tropical climatology here, yes, this is the day where we've seen the most storms going back through history. But September as a whole is still very active. It's more active than August. October often gets overlooked. October is oftentimes in some seasons more active than August too. And so you get this little plateau between October 1st and the middle part of October where things can be very active. And then you start to get those strong cold fronts by the end of October typically, and then into November, things really start to shut down across the basin. So that's what we hope happens, is that, well, things remain inactive, but I want to remind you that hurricane season's not over yet. Let's not write it off just yet. Hopefully we don't have any more problems, but showing last year, the end of September and October, we saw an influx of big storms from a Category 4 to a Cat 5 last October. Remember Milton in the Gulf? What a storm that was. And so let's just sit back and take it day by day and enjoy the quietness while we've got it. That's your great update here on your September 10th on your tropical weather impact. I will see you right back here tomorrow, same place, same time. Thanks for joining me today.